Alright, we're live. Okay, first things first, no reason to spawn sideways here. I can't think of a map that actually does spawn you sideways like this. There's no real difference between you just spawning forward and people knowing where to roll out, and people should know the map they're playing on if this is competitive. Yeah, it's not really a sight read, you don't need to guide them like this. Just have them spawn forward, and they should know that they roll out the left spawn. If you want, you can use more signage. But yeah, for the rollout, we're going to start rollout, we're going to go work our way from mid to last, and then work our way back the other way. So, on the rollout, definitely a left side here. Right side is kind of like, because the point is close to the left, it makes sense that you'd roll out left here. But it doesn't really make sense that you kind of like come out and then back in. I think this feels very awkward. If you could try to make your rollout more of a straight line or a little bit more intuitive, like the way this kind of, I know the entire map is kind of built on a weird vertical angle, which is a really cool concept, but it ends up making this rollout feel particularly clunky because you're ending up taking a lot of kind of like sharp corners, which is just going to slow everything down. I do think this is kind of cool. The way this drop down works, it means your soldiers can kind of get up before the rest of your combo. But typically for any fast rollout, you're either looking to do one or two things. You're looking to roll out really fast and land on the enemy demo, killing him, or you're looking at landing somewhere where you can start to do some spam. So one of the things Froyo is known for doing on Sunshine is they have both their soldiers roll out fast and they both start spamming the same kind of choke door they know that enemy team has to come from, and the demo could get knocked down or even killed at the very start of the mid. They could get locked out if the demo arrives soon enough as well, their demo. But okay, so you kind of have nice high ground here for soldiers. I think this is good because these give good spam angles. But the actual mid itself, you need to ask the question, is it a rotate mid or is it just kind of a commit across mid? So rotate mid, like Processor Sunshine, I call it the washing machine mid. Essentially you have two teams rotating in the same direction. They're trying to keep momentum. They're trying to isolate the player furthest back if they're slow and collapse on them, or they're going to instantly try to counter rotate, come back around and smash into the players who are stretching themselves out too thin. So you kind of do like this weird death ball thing. Soldiers like jump forward and you keep rotating either clockwise or counterclockwise. I don't think this is a rotate mid, primarily because there's deep low ground on both sides of the point. That means you would not rotate right after leaving this choke, and you would not rotate left after leaving this choke. Because as soon as you get behind this tower, you lose vision, and then you drop into low ground. If they're just sitting on the high ground, you're just going to lose to spam, and they don't really have to commit off their position. So instead, this means this is kind of like a commit across mid, or high ground mid, whatever you want to call it. The main mids that you would kind of see like this would be Snakewater and Metalworks. Both of them fall off the same philosophy, though, where there is some evident high ground that you're trying to play off. So in Metalworks, you have a fight for the high ground. Whoever owns the point at the very end is kind of the winner. For Snakewater, you have fight for high ground kind of like above the points. Whoever owns that is kind of controls who is able to cross the point. A little bit like Sunshine, if you're trying to commit across, we say bell tower control. Whoever has bell tower control controls who can aggress. Yeah? So this mid reminds me a lot of Workflow, which isn't an official map, but essentially you have some moderate high ground over the point, and that's really the only way I see a mid fight happening is just a little bit of combat space across the point. Essentially, I would see Demo locking out their platform, and then your team starting to walk with maybe your soldier bombing off this tower, and your other soldier maybe hanging passive or getting ready to go in as well with a single rocket jump off the wall. What this means is you really only have two options for your mid. This isn't really good or bad. People have different preferences, but you'll probably have more advanced players think the mid is like a little bit boring because you essentially only have passive or aggressive. And at least on Snakewater, you can do like an aggressive and then walk over and not care if they have the high ground at the end control. But I think this map, you kind of have just one straightforward kind of just push across the point. Okay, so now that we've talked about the mid fight, I think we should move on and try to talk about holding spaces because I think this was the big problem that people kind of had with initially looking at wraparound, where I think they said the middle is high ground, and the entire map from that point is low ground if you lose the mid. Yes, while that is true, I don't think it necessarily has to be like an unsolvable problem. I think the biggest reason you have that problem, it's too hard to push back into mid, is because of your choke design. Okay, so one of the two big things is vision. How far can I see? Because the closer they can get in before I can see, the harder of a time I have forcing them or even just spamming them out. You think like Sunshine, there's some sharp corners from valley to mid, right? And then Metalworks, alley is like a sharp corner, and then lower in all the house area is basically a blind spot if you're staring at the point. But if I'm standing here, right, how much vision do I have? I can see all the way back to the alley, and I can see all the way back to that wraparound route. Same thing here, I can see all the way there. And what it means is it's very hard to get your combo anywhere without the team already knowing. And basically what happens is they spot the combo, they know where your beam is, and then a demo and two soldiers start spamming that way, and then you have a hellish time pushing up this entire space. Even though it's a wide open space here, it's really hard to push up a slope like this with that many spam classes coming focused down at you. If anything the spam's going to collect, there's a good chance your medic is going to drop. So instead, what you need to do is you need to make sure that you have some way for players to get much closer without being spotted. And then for these other routes, if you look at this kind of left side, for starters, the route there, Pig is in, this route, it's very long and doesn't really connect. It doesn't add anything. As you can see, this kind of, it ends up going to the same area if we're going out, and this window is somewhere that's very awkward to try to commit from because they're going to have some players here, and you're basically pushing through their flank and their combo if it's here. So you're double dipping, and you don't even get much better ground for it. It doesn't really get you in any more than any of these other spaces. And I really think a lot of these chokes are a little bit too tight to push from. If you look at kind of like the space, they'd be very easy for a single splash class to kind of like stuff. And that goes for pretty much everything in this indoor area. So the biggest suggestion I have there is just you need to consider how players can get a lot closer without being spotted, and how to make it so that players don't have good spam angles over a lot of these entrances. Or if they do, how to like make more entrances or give them more options to kind of like rotate from. I think one of the good things about this lobby is you can poke one way. If that doesn't work, you can poke the other. But the only way that works in terms of pushing is if you can't watch both from the same position. So you need to have kind of dedicated positions that can see some doors but can't see others. But alright, moving on. So that was defending mid from pushing second. Let's talk about pushing second. I think, as mentioned, you kind of do have a high ground advantage. I'm not really sure you would want to push out any of these lower doors. It seems like this far side, it seems like the easiest to dry push from. You get immediate vision onto the entire point, which is a really big deal. Where any sort of bomber, any sort of hiders, any sort of spam, the things you're typically scared of when you're trying to take a point for free is immediately solved by coming this way, because the only place someone could bomb from is kind of like this platform here on the left, and you're already coming in at an angle where you can kind of see that. So they have to be pretty far back, and that's the first place Scout would take positioning over. So this way, it's a little bit like Sunshine's cafe when you're coming into second, where as soon as you come in, you have immediate vision, but it's like huge, huge open door, which makes it really wide. And you might think this object kind of like helps the attacking team kind of have nice vision over this, but I think what it ends up being is it gives the defenders, the people pushing tons of vision as well. It makes it pretty easy normally to dodge a bomb if you have this much vision and a clean choke to just duck back into. So if you think, again, Sunshine's Cafe, that one has kind of like a double door commit that you have to come through. But anyway, you don't have to design off any of these official maps I'm talking about. It's just I'm trying to pull from some of the concepts because they're what I'm familiar for. But anyway, that's only one type of Uber. If you're trying to use an Uber to dry push in, you're not trying to use it. If you're trying to catch, that'd be you're trying to use your Uber advantage to kill the enemy medic, it would probably make sense to come through one of these close doors. And this is one of the big reasons why teams can't hold close. Where you can't hold close when you're at disad, but you still want to force. I think you this is a good job of kind of like, I think off this door, especially with this window, there's a good chance that a medic would just use through here, because otherwise there's a risk that any splash is coming this way with this vision. That's good design, I think, where you kind of are forcing the medic through the aggressive route by map design. But I do think, like, in terms of defending and hold positions, how do you stand and still manage to pressure the medic, right? And if I'm looking here, pretty much all the spaces are in low ground where we can't contest. We're just going to have to leave almost immediately. Because I cannot stand as a medic anywhere, if we're 30% disad, I can't stand anywhere within a single demo jump. Basically, if a demo can jump that far, I can't stand that close or else I'm caught. So I'm thinking where you probably stand is like back here on the right. And the biggest issue with this that I see that I'm talking about later is that it takes quite a while to get to your last, and that area is kind of maze-like. But you're essentially, I would say, playing all the way back here on bats, and they shouldn't really have much of an issue coming in because there's not a lot of good positioning. Like this corner is pretty much the only position I can see a soldier taking for a hiding bomb, but there's no there's no enabling of a spam force. And what I mean by spam force is essentially what I was talking about on mid, where the beam is called and then your soldiers and your demo spam the same spot, right? But your demo can't stand anywhere close as well. He's gonna have to stand back here if he wants to get out. Because there's not really a good sticky jump he can do. All of this is on low ground, and it's not really a choke he can fly through very easily. So your demo's going to be pretty far back, and your soldiers don't really have great high ground that they can't get easily forced off. Like, this is a very tiny ledge, this is a very tiny ledge, and then this is kind of just hidden in a corner. That's just, the issue is almost that it's too good, which is the big reason why scouts will always check it. And you do have a ledge over here that I see, but this is, again, kind of the same thing, just kind of like a hiding spot. Really, at higher level play, you don't really see too many single sacks. It's a lot more kind of like spam forces and pressure cooking. Just kind of like applying pressure without sacking anyone. But anyway, going into kind of like the lobby here into last. Actually, wait, hang on. I should talk about defending second first. So if you're defending second on even, you're waiting for a sack, and I think the space here actually feels pretty good. Like, you can see a lot of the routes. There's nothing wrong with a lot of these blockers besides the fact that I don't really think there's much of an option for the defending team to pressure something like a sniper. Like a sniper in main here isn't really an option you can extend on because there's one, two, and three doors above you that could have players just kind of like supporting it. So it's really easy to have a sniper sightline that you can support. That's not super uncommon. Like Gullywash has a pretty big sniper sightline, but that map is also kind of like, it's said that you can play perma sniper on Gullywash because it's so easy to support your sniper through these tight chokes. So what I would recommend is trying to look at your sightlines and thinking like, is there any way a defending team can pressure this player? And in the case of there, a sniper being all the way back by that sightline, I don't really think you can. But in other situations, you essentially have a 2.5 choke design, kind of. I would say the mid is kind of like the 1.5 because there's like drop down another door. The other one's the kind of flank. The only problem I have is I don't think there's much distinction between the combo and the flank, where you could literally just have your entire team sitting in one spot watching all the doorways. Again, I kind of like the idea that there's kind of distinct objects between the two. If you think of a map like maybe Process, if you're Process holding your second, there's very clear distinction. IT is the flank, choke, and then sewer is the 1.5. And if we just think of another one, Gullywash, right, which is probably the chokiest map I can think of. Gullywash has its choke being 1. You could consider drop down zero point 0.5 when pushing in. And then the big door and the baby door is the 1.5. So your map here, it has 1.5 and then 2.5, but the 1.5 here is very kind of like, it's incredibly blended together. Like it just kind of bleeds into the same doorway, and then your flank kind of ends up being watchable from the same spot. I don't think you'd ever play players really inside here. There's no real reason to, because they just kind of are risking getting caught. They just like play in there and then jump out here and get heals, and then the door would get stuffed either way. So it is a little bit awkward. I think there is potential for high bombs like Pit just did there, but there's so much space here that any scout should really be able to deny that bomb quite cleanly. There's a lot of room to kite, and that bomb is just like super visual. So in terms of how it would play, I kind of predict it would turn into a stalemate before off classes because it's kind of hard to sack in. And in terms of your options sacking out, I think if they give up the lobby, even then you don't really have much of an option because, as I mentioned, you're pretty much spotted visual everywhere. All right. Talking about pushing into last, I would say one of the biggest things is this room is just kind of maze-like. There's no reason for geometry like this. It's not really good to play around. Typically, there's two types of lobby designs that I've seen, and the two ones I'm going to point to will be something like Process and then something like Gully Washer Sunshine. So in Gully Washer Sunshine, you pretty much own the lobby. If there's 6 players, you're 6 players. They don't really have an option to get into the lobby. There's no hold for lobby. You own all this space, and the purpose of the space is to let you rotate. So you can poke the left, you can poke the right, however way you want. The other type of lobby design is kind of a process where you don't own this lobby. When you're in the lobby as an attacking team, you're doing so because you're making a push, you're making a sack, but it's not a comfortable position or space to be. Either one is fine. If you want the process design, I typically recommend opening up sightlines. But for starters, what you should do is you should try to streamline the lobby and keep in mind what it's for, which is connecting the sides. Right here, your lobby doesn't really connect the sides, and then your right side lobby is very separated and kind of is the only one that has this under route pass. It just all ends up being a bunch of disconnected routes where the lobby's point is to kind of unify those, at least in my mind. Um, as for the space, I think that the big space leading into these tight chokes, this is like a little bit too excessive of a tight choke. And I think it also bleeds into the same idea from before, where through these tight chokes, neither team can really aggress, right? Like you can't push your players through the tight choke, I can't push my players through the tight choke, but a sniper bullet doesn't care about how tight a choke is. If anything, it likes sniping through a tight choke because that means you can't pressure him that well. So I think some of these sight lines are just a little bit too scary, and it's a little hard to commit on something like a protected player all the way back here. And similarly, if they manage to push for space at all, the extent of the sightline means they pretty much can control space on the other side of the point. And you have to keep in mind when you're dealing with like high-level players, they basically have to treat snipers as if they don't miss shots because a lot of times they don't. So sniper sightlines need to be super respected, and anything that involves peeking should be closely monitored or it should come with it should bear some risk. But a lot of these chokes like this, right? If you're thinking about this zone in terms of Sunshine's last, pushing Sunshine's last, there's something very similar like this where you're pushing last and it's on the right side and there's a door like this, but it comes into a high ground. right? And the door is also constantly monitored by a player constantly watching that. So this platform here kind of reminds me a little bit of Sunshine, but that would mean you need to have your demo here, you need to have your combo back, and the lower route needs to be watchable from the far right. But if I look at the far right here, where I'd probably want to stand as a soldier, there's 3 doors. I can't simultaneously watch them all, and I'm able to be pushed out quite easily. Because even though this is a tight choke, if they rotate their beam here, my beam is isolated on the far side and can't really rotate over easily. Your beam would never really want to rotate to the flank anyway. So I think the way the last design works, it reminds me a lot of Sunshine, but this seems much more friendly to the attackers, and the right side also has a lot more doors that seem just kind of easy to push through. In terms of the width of the point, this could just be dev textures, or it might just be me talking out of my arse, but I think it seems a little bit overscaled in that it seems a little large. What that typically means is when fights happen, they just kind of become mosh pits. Because I think on Sunshine, what normally happens is the demo tries to take control of this right side and spam out down to the point. But on the point design you have, it kind of feels like the distance is too far to really be able to do anything like commit into a side. Like it's definitely there's kind of like 2 ways to do a last hold. You rotate through your spawn if it's a very tight last like Gully Wash, or you rotate kind of like behind the point if it's something like Villa or Process where there's a thing above it. This kind of feels like you could definitely stay on the map and kite an Uber because it's so far. If you're using in through any of these doorways, just like from the perspective all the way back here, a demo cannot jump far enough to like lock out spawn with a single sticky jump. Similarly, like a medic walking at speed is just going to have to walk and try to chase people who can just walk away from them. So whatever door you're coming in from, I think it's going to be a little bit of a tough ask for players just rotating away from you. I think it'll be, it's, I'm kind of contradicting myself here, but I think it'll be easy to push because a lot of the doorways are easy to pressure from, but I also think it'll be hard to push because a good team will just know how to kite away from your Uber and then just play off their spawners. In terms of this area back here, it kind of is supposed to remind me of exactly like before, like I was saying, processes like um, roof area where you can just like play somewhere and rotate away. And like I said, I think that's going to make it really difficult for a team to kind of like manage to catch the medic. It probably means there'll be need to be a lot of point play and point pressure. But I think again, because of the width, it's going to be a little bit hard to focus the picks down you need, especially if there's anything like a sentry gun or a heavy. Uh, or a demo just on the other side of the map, it's really hard to chase a lot of those players down just because you have so much width to play. You typically can only focus 1 or 2 things down, and then finding the next target with your Uber will generally be pretty difficult. To talk a little bit about some of these routes, I think the lower route is probably uh, decent. It kind of reminds me of, well, exactly Sunshine. The big deal is your lower route should be able to get you close, and you should be able to milk from it or get really close because of it. So if you're sending a down bomb from it, you want to be able to bomb to one of the spawn doors or kind of like on top of their combo immediately. Otherwise, you want to be able to milk through and kind of use crossing the point close to where their combo is. So on Sunshine, if their combo is up there, you typically use a cross point. On Villa, if their combo is close, you typically use through the door, but you're much closer and can get on them immediately. Yeah? If you're bombing through the top left, if this was Sunshine again, you'd be trying to milk. I think this would be fine to milk here because their combo again would probably be on the far side or in the roof area if they're playing Disad. Um, Through the right side, on Sunshine, you typically just use and try to jump to the spawn. On this point, I don't really think it'd be an option. I think you would be fine milking through here because the platform is so wide, it's not choky, as long as there isn't something like a sniper, which is a big concern because the sniper sightlines, like kind of protecting last year, are quite long. I'm not really sure there's much you can do about that, but I think you need to be cautious about a spot like this because one of the big things snipers generally talk about is what doors they can watch from a single position. And me standing right here, I can see all 3 doors there, and then like with a tiny rotation, I can see the 4th door. I can cut off the lines that I want to see. So it's kind of hard to counter snipe against a sniper who knows how to play sightlines because wherever he can see can be shot from, he can just control that. So sniping 1 door, sniping 1, 2, and this is like the fastest rotation ever, right? So there's no way your combo, especially with a messed up lobby where these aren't really connected, can deal with a sniper being able to see the doors that quickly, and that makes it just really hard to push off. So if it's like sniper shot at that door, and it's like, okay, let's play the other door, it takes them 2 seconds to rotate over, and there's so much vision into lobby that it's pretty easy to track your combo. Like a soldier is able to see if your medic comes here, and that's a pretty big deal. A lot of lobbies, like Gully Wash, obscure vision, where you can't really tell where the combo's going. Same thing kind of like Sunshine, where the attacking team has incentive on which way they can push, and usually the defending team has to react to that quite late. Where it's like, oh, combo's on this side, a soldier has to rotate over and spam it. On this map, I don't think it'd be too hard because you have so many things to help kind of like aid the defenders with like visuals of like these see-through barriers and just a straight sight line that they can't really be pressured from really helps teams keep track of where the attackers are, and it can feel like they're reacting to where you want to push before you even manage to get anything done, which can be really frustrating. Overall, I'd say this last would probably stalemate unless one of the team commits, in which case, yeah, obviously something's going to happen. Um, when it does stalemate, I can definitely see snipers coming out just because of the length of the sight lines and kind of the positioning. But last kind of reminds me of Sunshine. I think that's kind of what the design was going for. The biggest takeaway I would probably say is that you need to consider what your spaces are for um, what your positioning kind of is over the chokes and how you really want players to get in. Because kind of one of the points I missed, like pushing out of last, right? You push out of last here, and this lobby area is really difficult to go through. And even if you come out this top, right, you've basically given them a straight line to your last. So how is a team supposed to push out of last and clear all these spaces, right? Let's say we managed to get 2 picks. Normally that's something that we should push out on, but I have that route I have to clear. Anyone could be holding close to the shutter and just commit through. And then I also need someone to check through lower, and I also need someone to check through left. It's just too many routes for a team to be able to push through cleanly. I think it'd be incredibly easy to backcap if a player was just loitering anywhere, like in this lower area, and then just a straight line to last because you have one, two, three, and then a split off there. So 4 doors, I think, where people could be not spotted that I'd have to walk through. It's just really difficult to push out if we don't have a connected lobby. That's another purpose the lobby serves. Like if you're in a map, let me just think of one real quick. Because Sunshine's an okay example, right? But the point is, you walk in the lobby, you know nothing else is in lobby. There might be another route like lower, kind of like dungeon. That's fine. But right here, walking in lobby, I don't know if there's anyone up there. I still don't know if there's anyone close to this shutter. I don't even know if there's anyone hiding like kind of around this corner or anything. So it's really difficult to clear things. It should be more instinctive, or you should have more ability to kind of like empty a space immediately to prevent a back cap. As for pushing from second to mid, I already mentioned this, but I think you need to consider ways to get players close without being spotted, and then also ways to kind of um, get through some of these tighter chokes, whether that's easier rotation routes or harder positioning to watch all the chokes easily. But yeah, there you go. There's my rant. Pig, do you have any thoughts?
I feel like a lot of these areas are claustrophobic, and
Do you have any areas in particular? I'll spectate.
right here, I feel like right here, it feels kind of weird, the height difference between here, then we go further down and further down, and then we come back up immediately. I feel like there should be a staircase here, or, this should be a lot more level
You don't like
in
how
this
it's like a
area.
deep valley?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the height on the other side is good, but I do think the elevation is a little extreme. It could just be a consequence of, the map being designed the way it is because of the wraparound. But yeah, any other thoughts?
I don't like this crate jump here. I feel like there's a lot of spaces in where I have to look where I'm going in order to understand what's happening. I
Yeah,
feel like that's just me having to learn the map.
it could be learning
But
the
it
map,
also
but
feels a little bit like awkward flow.
in general,
So
you don't really want any sort of prop jumps when you have a risk of one team trying to escape because that's the worst time to kind of like have like a kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? A clunky jump because players want to like back away while looking forward. That's pretty common because they want to dodge spam. They want to see if they have to use anything like that. If they back out and get stuck on props or have to do a clunky jump, it kind of removes from the flow of the map. I know, I use the word flow. Um,
I do like this. Like initially I was kind of about it, but I do like where this is going.
the mid or the kind of like
Yeah.
initial design because I like the wraparound concept. I think it's really
Yeah,
cool.
I think it's very cool. Um, I feel like just the combat spaces are the biggest problem for me, at least.
I don't
Like,
know. I would say
I don't feel like there's a need to jump here. Like, this could just be level.
yeah.
Or this could be level with this over here.
I also think there's no real reason for that
And then you
alcove,
could have a
right? So
staircase
I
here.
think like like that could just be one ramp. I don't really see the point of it being like indented out.
Yeah, having
I mean,
this
that's just
here.
me. But I think the biggest thing for me is the lobby needs to be interconnected and easier to clear.
Mm,
And then there needs to be more options for getting close, either sending a countersack or making a dry push back into mid. Because I don't think the elevation itself makes it impossible to push into mid. I think the problem is the routes. You have tight doors and you have long sight lines that are easy to spam. You need
mm.
to make something like Sunshine's Valley where there's a sharp cutoff that you can use to the attacker's advantage, or you need to make it so that you can dry push from some space, um, or at least you can get close before the choke happens.
Yeah.
So I would say the biggest problem is in indoor areas right now. But it's interesting you commented on the outdoor one.
And another thing with flow, it's like I feel like this here, there's no reason to even have a jump. I mean, maybe it's for like a ramp slide or something cool, you know,
Hmm.
so then you could like run in and then probably land on this crate. But I feel like this crate having a base to it is kind of just awkward. Like my view keeps going up and down all over the place.
Yeah,
And this
I think
crate, I don't understand why this crate's here.
I might
Trying to
say
find
there's
it.
something to be said about having like these kind of half ramps. Maybe he doesn't want to stretch the ramps all the way
Mm.
because it does seem to be a little bit of a reoccurring theme.
Because it's like this room could be flat, and this would feel like 5 times more comfortable to fight in. This would feel really nice, actually. Like same with this, if you just, you know,
You think
get this landing
there's too
here
many
flat outward,
tiny you think
and
there's
then
too many
raise this a little bit.
you think there's too many tiny elevation differences?
Yeah, and I feel once those are removed, this would be like a lot more comfortable. This one, I like this elevation difference here, though.
Yeah, I think
I
that
feel
mid
like this
elevation is
this I
fine.
would keep, but other things like what is this for? Okay, now I see why that's there. Like this, I would make this level here. I would make this level here. I would either delete the crate and this. Um,
You're saying like remove the micro heights that don't matter.
yeah, and then maybe make this a lot more flat in this area, and then have it where this is the only real entrance into the lower. If you're going to keep the lower,
I don't know. I would probably move the lower entrance of the lobby. Like I said, I think you need your routes unified. If that is
Mhm.
trying to do the same thing as Sunshine,
Also, yeah, stair or
I
like
think you
a
basically need
pallet
one connected
here.
lobby and one dungeon, and that's it. And then yeah, also clunky jump.
Mhm.
Because right
And
now
my
you
other
have
complaint is that this shutter door to this last is a little too close, in my
doesn't.
opinion.
I also think the shutter door doesn't serve a purpose. So let's talk
Like
about
I
shutters real
feel
quick,
like
right?
okay, what I feel would be really nice is if instead of having these two doors here, you just had a door, one gigantic door here, and this would all be level. So you kind of just leave the door here, and then everyone would be able to shoot at you. I mean, that's just my opinion.
You could do kind of like man base, like a left route into man base
Yeah,
for a lobby. But
like these two doors should just be one door,
yeah,
like
you have
either here or there.
two very tiny doors. You should have one door that doesn't have a crazy sightline.
Hmm.
Um, Also, I really want to talk about this shutter thing, right? Because you don't
So
just put a shutter for the sake of a shutter. Shutters do one of two things. They block a sightline, which I don't think is your issue here, or well, maybe a little, but
no, I
or
don't think
they
so.
serve as glue, right? So an attacking team has trouble pushing past a shutter, and a defending team gets an advantage because of the shutter being
Oh,
there.
look at
What?
that.
What?
I realize why these cover pieces are here,
Yeah.
but
I don't think
I
the cover
still
pieces
don't.
are an issue, but
Well, I don't know. I feel like it makes being on the point claustrophobic because you don't have a lot of space to breathe.
it kind of gives you poor vision on the point. That's true. But hang on, Pix, you're
Yeah.
interrupting me. I
I
want to go
mean,
back to the shutter.
if you're down here, look, there's this cover piece here, and this here, and they all like wedge together to build a flat wall.
Hmm.
I don't see what that changes. Hmm.
I mean, I do think it's good that you're not able to be sniped from there. But I also think the point of shutters, right, is to make it a zone that's like there's glue there. It's hard to push past it. That shutter is not a route I can see any team pushing from normally because if you push from here as the attacker, right, so you're pushing from last to second, you have no vision of your right, which is horrible. If you're pushing from the right, then there's no point to the shutter. If you're attacking into last, then you should already own this space. Like there's no reason for the demo to be holding in that lobby, or even a soldier really, because it's too aggressive. So that shutter, I think if you deleted it, it'd be exactly no different. If you want to add a shutter, you do so because you want to have an important zone to push out from. It kind of makes like a decisive wall. Like one team's on one side, the other team's on the other side. That shutter doesn't do anything because you would only it'd only be relevant in stopping someone from chasing you while leaving, and even then, I think like you're already out of the lobby at that point. So it's a very awkward kind of like shutter position. Look at that fast rollout. Shame you
Yeah.
don't go this way.
I don't know. I think some of the ramps are important though. Some of the micro, like this here for the rollout is important. Like,
Yeah.
no, I can't hit it now, but
I mean, a lot of the
maybe
micro
wall
ramps are
spot.
important to roll out. But what do you think? Do you
Yeah.
think you would use the wraparound alcove? Oh, I don't think you do.
I feel like this
Oh,
could be streamlined though.
you're
Like
thinking
these
of a
two.
yeah. Are you trying to think of a fast rollout through Valley to land on the demo?
I guess.
I think you would just
I mean,
hug the wall
I'm
close and
just
just roll
thinking
out
about
normal.
because ramps aren't a problem, especially if you just have random ramps all over the place. It's really fun to rocket jump with.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about two other things. So one of the things that's important to consider is spawn times, and the only thing I wanted to talk about besides that is packs. Yeah. So let's start by just talking about spawn times. Typically, and this depends on what map you're doing, but the spawn times don't differ that much unless there's a forward spawn that's like significantly closer. And there's a big page on the TF2 wiki for CP spawn times based off how many points you owned for each map. I think Gully Wash is the only one that has same spawn times regardless, which is 8.9 seconds respawn wave time for the entire map, regardless of how many points you own. As for pack placement, I think the biggest concern I have is you have a medium on mid, and then you have two mediums in both the kind of like routes to leave. That is a lot of health to work with. Typically, if there is a medium on mid, it's one that's contested or somewhere that you really don't want to stand, kind of like
Process.
process.
Wow,
Yeah,
there's
but if you
actually
look,
two in my
yeah,
line
there's
of.
two in your line of sight there, and then there's one in the wall behind you, just to the right. Yeah, like right under, like if you look forward to where you saw the two packs, it's through the wall to your right in the valley, right?
Oh, holy shit!
No, no,
Yeah.
no, no. Hang on, not that one.
So
There's
there's this one,
yeah,
this one,
and
this
then go
one.
to the valley area behind you, the kind of like grass long joke. Yeah, right there. There's another
Oh
medium.
yeah, what the hell?
So it is a lot of health. Typically in sixes, you do not put this much health close together. If you do something like Sunshine, Cafe, and Valley, you have to rotate out of your way to grab those packs. That's really significant. Most of the time, soldiers do not grab packs on Sunshine. They get arrows instead because they spend too much time out of the fight. On a map like this, what you do by having a lot of packs is you enable a lot of soldier action, and you also create, I don't want to call it degenerate gameplay, but I think kind of is what it is, where a lot of times you'll have a race to the packs to survive. Where it's really annoying when a medic is like playing on a pack. It kind of cheapens the whole sense of positioning, where it's like, oh, he just gets health. But yeah,
Also, I would pull this skybox backward. I mean, that's one of the anal things. I mean, it is just in development, but
fucking Mapper nerd.
is there anywhere where I could wall bug to
Yeah,
see into that log?
there's a 45 there behind you. You could security
I don't.
camera on
I
it
don't.
above the point.
Hmm.
So no,
No.
I mean we're just messing around now. But above the point, there's that angle there. You could definitely wall bug off that, right? You'd have to be pretty good.
No, I suck.
Yeah, you don't know how to security camera.
No.
Well, in any sense, I think that's a pretty good summary of all our points. And by summary, I mean just a big mess, just a jelly goo.
Yeah.
Did you have any other thoughts about anything? Wait, can you not jump over that?
Um. Over this? No,
Yeah,
I bet you can.
I was gonna say you got caught on something. You're good.
I wonder why this is here. That's probably to block scout.
To prevent Scout from lipping at that doesn't matter. We'll just use Winger
Hmm,
if it's a Winger map. I didn't test. Also, I bet you could jump from the slanted ramp up, huh? The one behind you.
hold on. Oh.
Yeah, I was gonna say the back of spawn. What are you looking for?
Resupply.
Oh, for your Winger.
Oh, what the hell? My winger.
It's not even resupplying right. Oh, I was gonna disable respawn time, so
Yeah, yeah. I
yeah.
don't know. Yeah, I guess you can
Could you make
still
the
winger.
jump normally from the little? Well, of course you can Winger.
This here,
Yeah.
no.
Okay. Yeah, that looks a little hard. It really is just anti-scout, huh? I don't really
Yeah.
know. I guess that's one way of making soldier only ground, but it doesn't seem too important to me.
Mhm.
Like it's so far back, no one's gonna. I guess you prevent a sack from main that way. Hmm.
I mean, I guess.
It has potential. Anyway,
I
I'm
think
gonna
what this map accomplishes though is pretty impressive. As
having
far as
a
stacking all the points like this and how they dealt with the height difference could be done a little bit better is what I'm trying to say.
like I said, I think the main issue for me is the indoor area design. They just need to be more interconnected. But besides that, I really like the concept of this map a ton.
Yeah.
I thought that the first time I loaded it, I was like, okay, and this connects to here, and then I no clipped and I saw where the mid was with the perspective of the last. I was like, holy crap! So yeah,
Holy shit.
it's really cool. Anyway,
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna end the recording there.
Cool.